Well, welcome back to another episode of the Miles Driven. This time it's the Volvo XC90. It's the one that has been around since 2015, but this is the latest version of it, released in 2024. This update was, so this car has had an update, release 15. It had an update in 2017, then a facelift around 2020, and then 2024. Let's just say it was given an extension of life. So we have the car that we have here today, and I think we probably should expect to see this car around for at least another couple of years. I don't know actually when Volvo will remove this from the lineup because we all keep buying them. So, two engines, that's all you get on this model. They've got rid of the diesel. The diesel has been gone for a little while now. So you can have a mild hybrid 2-litre petrol, or essentially the same 2-litre engine, but paired up with a plug-in hybrid system, which is the one I am sat in here. We'll get onto prices a little bit later in the video. But if you go for the plug-in hybrid, this at the moment has got a full charge of battery. It's saying 36 miles. I think officially it's 43 miles. My experience of it, you'll get somewhere between 35 and 40 miles of real world range on a charge. Not too bad for this size vehicle, and with current fuel prices, it does keep the running costs down a little bit. However, if you want to save some money, and if you can't charge up, although this car does have a clever trick that I'll get onto a bit later, but if you can't charge up at home, you have the mild hybrid model. Now, there is, I would say, a fair performance difference between them. So if you are looking between them, I'd suggest driving both. But if you're in something like maybe an X5 3-litre diesel, for example, and you've got used to that sort of torque shove, the 2-litre mild hybrid may feel just not quite enough for you. You may have to step over into this plug-in hybrid. And to be honest, if you're in a plug-in hybrid of any of its competitors at the moment, then you'll have to go for this. However, on the plus side, 250 horsepower if you go for the mild hybrid, 450 horsepower if you go for this plug-in hybrid here. But I know what you're all thinking, and that's, Miles, this is a family car, so can I get people in it? Well, I'm 6'8", so I'm going to get in the back, in the middle row, and then I'm going to get into the third row and see if I can squeeze myself in there, because if I can get in there, most of the people you know should at least be able to get in head to tail. Okay, that's not too bad. It's a bigger challenge though. Oh, it only goes to there, okay. Yeah. Well, I'm in. I'm not sure I'd want to spend much time back here, and my head is in the roof, but I'm in. And you can even fit a whippet-sized dog in the boot with all 7 seats up. Now, before we get on the road, let's just talk about the redesign that this car has had. So I think it's fair just to say this is a mild refresh. They've changed the front grille, the front lights. To be honest, most of it front to back is the same. Okay, so the front light design has changed. I actually think I preferred the previous front end, but you know, each to their own and all that. Then we've got the front grille, so that's taken on the new style grille. The back has had refreshed rear lights put on it, but it hasn't had anything else really change on the outside except the wheels. You can get it in several different wheel packages. I'm sat right now in pretty much the highest specification one you've got. The changes happen on the inside. So you've got this big iPad now dominating the screen. And you know what? I'm not going to be too critical of it for the main reason of they had a screen here before. I think it was better designed previously. The screen that was in there was, it just fit in with the dash style a little bit better. However, the problem is if you're cross-shopping these cars today, you'd be getting in one and the other, and the X5 and the Q7 and, you know, the Range Rovers and all the equivalent price models. It would look a bit odd if it still had the smaller screen. Many people may like it, but the larger screen at least keeps it up to date. You've essentially got a Google system, which you know, if you buy the equivalent Audi Q7, the BMW X5, the Range Rovers, if you buy Mercedes, when you're interacting with what you essentially have to interact with all the time, you at least have their system for good or bad, but it feels like their system. This is, you know, it doesn't feel very unique to Volvo. The screen up here is the same one they've had for quite a while. Sort of, it's a useful screen, but I do feel they've lost a bit of an opportunity and identity there. Of course, I would prefer them to have put some extra buttons in. They didn't, but you know what? You still have the volume knob down here. And that, to me, is a real critical one for a family car, because if you've got kids in the back, or some big kids in the back, and they're driving you crackers because they're going on and on and on about stuff, you want to be able to just twist and turn, read the riot act, come back, turn your volume back up. The last thing you want is to be fiddling around with haptics or trying to figure out, or you've cut it and it's not quite cut, or that sort of stuff, just have woof off. That I like, but I think, yeah, there's some very nice materials in here too. They've got the wood panel here. They've got this sort of cotton material up on the top here. These leather seats are fantastic, and I know from getting in old Volvo vehicles, leather seats in them, they tend to last as long as the cars. So I think there's a great package around this car, but, and it's a pretty colossal but, which I'm sure some of you will love that one, but it's price. I cannot get away from price. So these vehicles start, if you go for the mild hybrid 2-litre engine, £65,000, and that gets you a lot of car from its competitors. If in fact you looked at the equivalent Audi Q7, which has also been around for quite a long time, Audi are offering huge discounts off that, and you can get it with a 3-litre diesel, you can get it with their plug-in hybrid system, and essentially you can get their top spec for the entry money of these. That makes these difficult, especially, I couldn't see any obvious deals on these, but I said starting at 65. The one I'm sat in right here, this is the Ultra Pro model. It's £87,000 with the plug-in hybrid system. It's difficult. It's difficult when you're sat here, because you're always saying, look, some people can afford that. Some people will be there in the market for this sort of car. They'll look at the finance payment and they'll say that's perfectly acceptable. And that's great. The challenge is the price has moved up considerably over the years this car has been around, and £87,000 puts it up against competition that is A, newer, and B, has always sort of sold itself on being a higher priced luxury vehicle. Whereas Volvo is supposed to be the one where you're sort of like, yep, I want all the gear, but I don't want to have the high-end badge, and hopefully I shouldn't pay the very top dollar. Now you're paying the very top dollar. And in some instances, like for like, because other manufacturers are trying to shift, you know, the X5 is coming towards the end of its life, the Q7 is coming towards the end of its life. They're willing to offer some quite big discounts that mean you would have to get a hefty discount off this top model for it to sort of be in the same ballpark figure. But maybe that doesn't matter to you. Maybe you just love Volvo, you keep them for, you know, 10 years at a time. And so in that case, maybe the price is not such a big factor. I should probably say what you get for your money though is a lot. So I've got massage seats here, heated, cooled seats. We've got all the, as I say, all the digital displays here. You've got all the latest safety assists, which are mandatory in many countries. And then having that furthest row back, this is where, oh, and you get the Bowers and Wilkins sound system as well. This is where sort of the value is sort of being put into the car. And the last thing before we get on the road, owners do discuss brakes on these. So I did a buyer's guide for this car about 3 years ago. It's still on the channel. You can check it out after this video. As far as I understand it, Volvo have got on top of one of the bigger complaints. They've sort of been answering owner critiques over the years, and one of them was brake wear, and it seems they've managed to get on top of that. So there is a plus side there. At least if you're going into these newer models, you shouldn't have some of the issues that people have previously experienced. Okay, so now that we're on the road, I guess there's two things that we should talk about straight off the bat. One is handling and acceleration. I'm going to just deal with handling and ride comfort and everything like that first. So I mentioned recently when I did the video on are cars better now, better today than they were 10 years ago, that NVH was the big improvement that we've seen. Cars just, they've found that next extra little bit of insulation that they just didn't have 10 years ago. Now, in some cases, that can feel like a bad thing, especially if you're someone that likes sporty cars and likes to feel the road. The sweet spot is actually an older chassis like this that has been refined and refined and refined. And I have to say, it is one of the big strengths from Volvo's point. Is this class leading? Absolutely not. It's up there, but it's not class leading. You do get a little bit of vibration, a little bit of thuds and bumps, and that all leans into this idea of driving something sturdy and robust, and the old sort of adage of, you know, Volvos drive like a tank. You can actually buy an armoured version of this if you do want to be driving around in essentially what is a tank. But this, for most people, it has that middle ground between, there's a few lumps and bumps. Yes, I've got a feel for the road, but it isn't like a classic car. When I used to work in classics, you'd notice there was a lot of vibrations through the driveline. You'd sit there and after an hour, you were pretty tired. In a sports car, that's exactly what you want. And it's why, you know, for many people, classics are so popular. But if you're just trying to do your commute and just get on with your day, this is where a car like this really sells itself. Just got to get past the horse, which I'm sure many Volvo many a Volvo driver might find themselves if they live in the countryside. So that is where this car sort of, it has a big strength. And the funny thing is it comes from its age. I suppose it does help that it's had so many refreshes, iterations, that it's been able to just answer customer feedback and say, right, let's just give a bit extra here, sharpen it up here, and not too much. Now we're going to go into the national speed limit zone, so let's boot it. And then we go. There is a, right, hard on the brakes. We've got some heavy corners coming up here. I'll put them on the camera for you. So we're going to go, yeah, pretty big lean. This is a horrible corner. All cars get caught out here. I doubt this Volvo is going to be, yeah, it's pretty slow. Yeah, but now we're going to get going again. And there we go. Yeah, there we go. It does take a couple of seconds for this thing to throw you down the road. But when it gets going, yeah, it gets a wiggle on. The big bonus, if you go plug-in hybrid, 450 horsepower, it feels like V8s did sort of 10, 12 years ago in these cars. The only real annoyance or downside or thing that plays against it, there is that delay. You saw me and I was like, right, let's go. You know, there is, and you can put it into different driving modes. I think if you put it in power mode, you would get more instant power. But for most people, they're going to be driving it along in hybrid mode. So that's the real world weight that you're going to have on your hands. I'm going to get to some worse roads in a second, and I'll save the conversation about ride quality until then. What I want to say, when I said about it's not class leading, the challenge I think this car has for me is it's going up against quite a few rivals today, a lot of newcomers, but also cars that have been around for quite a long time, like the Audi Q7, which also, like this, has 7 seats and is a big SUV. And the challenge is, Volvo seem pretty sticky on their prices. I don't see them talking about a lot of discounts. Maybe if you're a good customer and you walk into a dealer, maybe there is deals to be had, but I didn't see them. Whereas Audi are very open about offering some pretty good discounts now off the Q7, to the point where their top specification models, with their discounts, assuming they're still there when you watch this video, really compete their top model against the entry of this model because of how huge their discounts are. And so I'm going to take this corner here. Let's just get a quick jump from 0. So I'm stopped dead. So let's just get moving again. We're in hybrid mode. All in electric, yeah, up to 30 and 40, and there we go. Is then, the trouble is, if the Q7 was a worse car in some respect that I could really sort of hammer home, I could say, well, yeah, you're saving your money, but the sort of admittance I have to give is that I really like this car. Having lived with it for a few days now, it's done a lot of chores with me, and it does get under your skin. I have to say, I try and remain impartial throughout almost all the reviews, and I'll always say, if I'm not going to be impartial, if I like something, if I genuinely like it for myself, I'll say it. And in this case, driving this, I like this car, and I'm trying not to be too kind to it. In fact, I'm probably going to be a bit harsh to it, because underneath it all, I look at it, I think, I'm enjoying this. I like being in this vehicle. And I think it's because it's not perfect. does have some compromises. We're getting on this worse road now, and I think this is where we're going to feel it. So yeah, it's a bit bouncy down here. Look, this shows up a lot of cars. It's why I come along this road. It's not the worst. And actually, I've taken a lot of big cars down here in the time that I've been doing this, and this probably rides somewhere in the middle. There's a lot of undulations here, a lot of cracks and potholes and dips, and yeah, I'm getting shaken around a little bit. It's like it shows up all cars. That's why I get down this road. And people have heard me talk about primary ride and secondary ride. It's a common motoring journalist assessment of how the car rides. Engineers are always talking about it as well. I think, funny enough, the secondary ride is where I'd say this car is really, really good. So it takes out those small imperfections of the road. It's the primary ride, it's the lumps and bumps that you really start to feel, and it throws you around. And if you do a lot of countryside mileage, like I'm along here, because they've sharpened it up, just that little bit, I think the big wheels also sharpen it a little bit. It's 6 of one, half dozen the other. The good side, the plus, as I went round that corner there, it was much, much easier than I think it would have been years ago in the early iterations of these. It just goes around, it doesn't leave you hanging mid-corner, because it's removed some of the softness that was there in the earlier one. And some cars, they do a fantastic job of insulating you, taking you away from that. But then, in particularly poor conditions, when you might want to just have that feel for the road, it can feel like a bit of a compromise. Yes, you've got better NVH, but it's come at the cost of knowing what's underneath you. And this car, as I say, it makes a sacrifice, but ultimately you get some advantages. This is where you get into sort of the road tester differences are marginal, and you start to pick it up versus people that are just going to buy a car. So I mentioned that acceleration earlier. So the figures are on this car, it's 5.5 seconds, 0 to 62, which is pretty impressive for the car that it is. I think if you go for the mild hybrid, it's 7.5 seconds. So that, I think with the mild hybrid, it's probably more what you'd expect from this size and class of vehicle. Whereas when you're going, like now, we're on this road, I'm going to give it the beans. Now, you know, so nothing, you know, it feels like old school turbo lag. If you used to drive a car in the 80s, or you've driven a car from the 80s, maybe early 90s with turbocharging, you feel that, you go and it's now. Yes, just a second and a half delay. Let's do some pros and cons of this car. So a few cons against it. Yes, it's not class leading when it comes to the ride, and I think especially compared to some of its competitors, it is pricey. Pros, it's so likable. It's such a likable car, and I think that's overlooked by a lot of reviewers. If you get in the car and it does a job, great, and then you'll sell it one day. If you like the car, you'll be a much happier owner, and when that payment comes out at the end of the month, or you know, when you do your deal and buy it in the first place, it'll feel that little bit less painful, because at least you like what you've got. Other pros, 7 seats, and at this size vehicle, cars have got larger and larger and larger over the last 10 years, and now this size is kind of being crept into by the BMW X3, Audi Q5, Mercedes GLC. They're sort of creeping up into this sort of larger end of the SUVs, whereas this used to be sort of more direct against the X5, and now the X5 is getting larger and the GLE is getting larger. And all that is adding width and it's adding length, and along a road like this, when I've got a van coming, it makes it, you know, a little bit difficult to navigate, whereas this, it's just the right size. You've seen me get in the very, very back of it. So there's ample space through the whole thing. But as I'm going along these tighter country lanes here, I'm not wincing as I go past people like, oh, it's going to be a bit tight. It's not happening. So that's another big, big plus. There's an old XC90 there. I really like that generation of XC90. I think if the price doesn't put you off in the first place, there's not too much about the car that will. However, if you're in a car that's only 3 years old and you're looking to make your 3 or 4 year change as you normally do, I do think this car will struggle to impress you, especially if you've already had one, because there isn't really a lot that's changed over the years. Little minor improvements, yes. But it does make it a bit of a challenge asking, top whack money for it, doesn't it? So, but you know, it is a nice place to be. Anyway, that's the end of the review. If you've enjoyed it, subscribe. We do have a buyer's guide, which I'll link as the next video that you can watch. If you've enjoyed it, stick around for other reviews coming to the channel, and I shall see you in the next one.